Guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 84th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it had, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. Scarface is one legend that I've already featured on this channel, but it was pretty early on in my first 10 videos, I believe. However, that was a Ghetto Boys album, so now that we're focusing on Scarface's solo discography, we get to put a microscope on the hip hop enigma that is Brad Jordan, better known as Scarface. While his work with Ghetto Boys alongside Willie D and Bushwick Bill was iconic, it was so much so it kind of resulted in an issue most groups deal with, where the classics they released as a collective tend to overshadow the solo projects. But when you actually delve into Scarface's solo discography, you find a number of classic, impactful albums and an insane level of consistency. I feel like he's in the small same group that guys like Doom and Cool Keith are in, where they've released great, if not amazing, projects across multiple decades. Doom came into the game with KMD right when the 90s broke, then reinvented himself throughout his career and developed an unrivaled body of work, in my opinion. Throughout the 2010s and even right up until his death with Super What, Heath kind of holds the top spot in my book since he had his first classic in the 80s with Ultramagnetic MCs. Then in the 90s, he had multiple quality releases, but most notably the first Dr. Octagon album. He even released a dope project last year with Real Bad Man called Serpent that I enjoyed so much it made it in the top 10 of my top 50 hip hop albums of 2023. But while Scarface may not be doing quite as much music nowadays, he proved he hasn't lost a step with his ridiculously good Tiny Desk performance. Void of his group work, while he has multiple classics, my personal favorite solo project of his came in the early 2000s with The Fix. Even just last decade, his deeply rooted LP in 2015 was very well received critically and by fans, and his work with Willie D on the podcast they share keeps him relevant even outside of hip hop. I think a lot of fans may gravitate towards The Diary as the best album in his discography, and with heavy hitting tracks like Jesse James and I Seen a Man Die, it's honestly kind of hard to argue with them. The reason The Fix is my favorite comes down to the fact every single second on it is purposeful and placed with care. There really isn't a moment wasted on here. Over a decade into his career, while many of his contemporaries were attempting and failing to change with the guard, Scarface sounds as hungry and on top of his game as ever. It doesn't sound like he was trying to keep up with the new sounds and MCs of the 2000s. To me, it comes more across like Face just stands tall and weathers the storm of the genre changing no matter what is thrown at him. He covers so much ground here musically, from the first song that follows the intro, which just slaps you in your face with the hardest beat imaginable, to the more cold and sinister moments where Scarface is just spitting game at the highest level. It isn't just the soundscape that's vast either. When you really break down his bars and take in what's being said, you find an MC who, in my world, can go toe to toe with three stacks for the likes of the most gifted lyricists to come out of the South. The description of his old neighborhood that he gives us with the infectious track On My Block is heartwarming and perfectly matches the uplifting Western piano sample. There's also some heavy themes of religion, and while I may not necessarily share the same religious views as Scarface, his commentary on people who use the Bible and its scriptures maliciously and for their own personal gain is unfortunately ever relevant. However, there's other moments where it's more about his personal relationship with God, and it definitely adds another dimension to the fix and fits in pretty snugly with the other themes here. Some of these include police brutality and discrimination, racial identity, and the trials and tribulations that become pretty much impossible to avoid in the ghetto. I think one thing that keeps Scarface and his discography so consistent, especially on this album, is his impressive ear for beats. Every instrumental is hit out of the park, and that could be attributed to the talented list of producers that include Kanye West, Tony Pizarro, Knotts, The Neptunes, Mike Dean, China Black, Lee Stone, T-Mix, and certain members of the Hitmen. The only thing here better than the list of producers has to be the A-tier group of features, which also includes Kanye on the hook of the epic posse cut with Hove and Beanie Siegel. The rest of this project keeps the star power up with appearances by Nas, Faith Evans, Kelly Price, Tanya Herron, and WC of Westside Connection. While Nas may have the best feature on this entire thing with his killer verse on In Between Us, the competition is so stiff it has to be kept as an honorable mention, along with In Cold Blood, Guess Who's Back, Keep Me Down, Sell Out, I Ain't the One, and What Can I Do? My three favorite tracks are mostly ones I already talked about because I love them so much, but they would have to include Safe, On My Block, and Someday, which definitely has one of the most catchy and addictive choruses of the 2000s. Thank you for watching my 84th video. Next time we're discussing a slightly more underground duo that never really found huge mainstream success, but they still had impact on people across the world. So tune in to see what act that is, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite tracks off of this statement of 2000 Southern hip hop are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.